Hey, this is Dr. Tang with whatsyourobsession.com. Today I'm looking over the First4Figures Ganondorf Exclusive statue. Now there were two versions of this statue. The regular, which you'll see in most of my video, and the exclusive feature, which was the maniacal laughing head, which I also cover. First things first though, the box, they did a superb job on it. They've even gone to the effort of etching out a Ganondorf illustration on the side, and on the other side there was a First4Figures illustration. Now, when you get it open, you're going to notice how absolutely imposing Ganondorf is. Which makes sense, that's the character. He's supposed to be big, imposing, a real menace. And here's a scale comparison to a 3/3/4 scale Marvel figure of Thor. He is absolutely huge, coming in around 23 to 24 inches, which for a quarter scale statue is just giant. But if they ever make a Link quarter scale, it's going to compare well, because if you remember the end battle of Twilight, Ganondorf is just huge compared to you. Now, the detail work on this is what really caught my eye. They do such a superb job, even the base alone. They've got all the symbols along the, well, not the symbols, the design along the side, but there's different levels of weathering, there's little cracked areas, the stone texture along the top, the variation of paintwork, and then you've got the goo paint, which is this translucent kind of goo leaking from the sword towards the bottom, which some people seem to think that was a paint mistake. It's definitely not, but that part of the paint isn't as nice as the rest of the stuff they do with the base. Still, base looks good. And then you start moving up the statue, and the first thing I noticed was all the variations of texture. The pants have this lined texture along them. The parts that are supposed to be leather armor have this kind of bubbly leather effect over it, which looks very cool. Then you go over the jewelry parts, especially around the gauntlet area, and what he has along his forehead and the hair. There's so much to look at on this statue, but it's not busy. It's just something that you can really just let your eye wander over it and really take in the amount of sculpting work they had to do on this. Even the back of the cape, they've got some very cool embroidery, which matches the game really well. Now, when you start looking at the paintwork, whatever factory they had on this just did a superb job. The metallics look great. The parts that are supposed to be more leather or more armor, they all have just a very different look, and none of it bleeds into the rest. The metallics especially I was impressed by, because there is some pretty fine detail work in certain areas. Also along the jewelry and the front gauntlets. They've just done one of the better painting jobs I've seen in a long time, especially for a paint job of this complexity, where there are so many different colors, so many areas that are supposed to have a different look. Like the front kind of, it's a fabric-y, parchment-y thing, or also the sword, how it's covered up with this fabric before he takes it out. Now, there were a couple issues with mine, which is to say there are parts of the sword hilt, difficult to see, but they were broken. And there was a part of the collar that was broken, which the factory fixed and glued together rather than just properly fixing it, like applying putty, sanding it down, and so on. I assume that was a cost-cutting measure, which is a little disappointing, but First4Figures is taking care of it. I just wanted to point out that you do want to pay attention to your statue and check it out before, putting it out fully on display. Because if you're paying $480, you really want a premium product that wasn't broken in advance, or at the very least was fixed so I could never tell it was broken. That minor complaint aside, the statue is gorgeous. It's been one of my favorite statues to check out lately. Just the details, the imposing nature of it, the iconic character. Like, finally, a great quarter-scale Ganon/Ganondorf statue to have in a Zelda collection. He was well worth checking out, and even for $480, although I believe you can get him less on aftermarket, well worth it. Hope you guys enjoyed the review.